Welcome back, everybody. Well, you guys really seem to enjoy my starting of something new a few days ago by highlighting one of my favorite scenes from Turn Washington Spies, and I promised I would be making that a series. So in addition to our regular content every day on the channel, I want to throw these in a couple times a week if I can. So we're going to take a look at another of my favorite scenes from a historical film today. This one comes from one of my all-time favorite historic movies, which is the movie Gettysburg. From the 1990s. I was in high school when this movie came out. I was actually in Gettysburg while they were filming with my family. We were staying in the same hotel as some of the cast members were, so that was pretty cool because they did film pretty close to the battlefield with some of this. So I want to set up this scene for you, give it a little bit of background information into what you're seeing, and talk about why I love this scene so much. So first of all, the film Gettysburg is based on a novel, a historical fiction novel from the 1970s called The Killer Angels. I say historical fiction because basically they're taking the real historic events and then writing a novel around it. So, we don't know what every conversation was between Lee and Longstreet during that time, but we can infer what they might have said based on what was going on. And so that's what the author attempts to do, is just to say things and portray things as they could have happened. And so it's based on that. And so because it's based on the novel, the movie shows the Battle of Gettysburg from the point of view characters in the book. And one of the major point of view characters in the book is Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. And so we see a lot of what goes on with the 20th Maine. In fact, the 20th Maine is the main focus on the Union side, especially for the second half of the movie. So what's happening here is this. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain is a professor from Bowdoin College in Maine. That has been his life. He actually considered becoming a missionary at one time. A very deeply religious man, also a very educated man, a scholarly man. He taught things like rhetoric at Bowdoin College. Later on, after the war, he'll become president of Bowdoin College as well as governor of Maine. But he decides he wants to do his part in the war effort, and he actually requests leave from Bowdoin College so he can go to the war, and they tell him no. So then he takes a sabbatical, claiming he's going to go to Europe or something, and then goes and enlists. He actually has a meeting with the governor of Maine. The governor of Maine offers him command of a regiment, but this is one of the many things I love about this guy. He says no, because he recognizes that he doesn't have military training. He doesn't have military background. And unlike a lot of guys who just would have said, yeah, and taken that job, Chamberlain wanted to learn, and he wanted to do it right. And so he said, you know what, give me a commission, but put me under an experienced officer. And so they make him lieutenant colonel, basically the executive officer of the 20th Maine Infantry under a guy named Adelbert Ames. Adelbert Ames will also go on to be, I think, governor of Mississippi after the war. He's the last surviving Union general when he dies in the 1930s. But Ames, just before Gettysburg, after Chancellorsville, but before Gettysburg, Ames gets promoted to brigade command, and he's given a brigade in the 11th Corps. So now Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, just a few weeks before the Battle of Gettysburg, takes command of the 20th Maine. So Gettysburg is his first, and as it turns out, only battle in command of the 20th Maine. People associate him with that regiment, but he only commanded them at Gettysburg, no other battle, because he does so well at Gettysburg that he ends up getting promoted to brigade command after the battle. And so what you have here is Chamberlain in his first time commanding the regiment. He's just been given, and you see this in the movie, over 100 mutineers from an old Maine regiment, and there's a whole story behind that, but basically it was an issue over enlistment and how long their enlistment was supposed to be, and they had actually eliminated that regiment and transferred most of these guys to the 20th Maine. So he starts out with them as prisoners, and most of them end up fighting for the 20th Maine. So they get to the battlefield, and they end up being rushed up to the top of Little Round Top. And his brigade commander is a guy named Strong Vincent, who is from Erie, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to put a couple links in the description below. One of them is my visit to the Erie Cemetery up in Erie, Pennsylvania, where Strong Vincent is buried. And you'll see my visit to his grave there. He was killed during the Battle of Gettysburg during this fight. While all of this is happening on Little Round Top, Strong Vincent is being mortally wounded higher up the hill. I also put in there a link to my video from my visit to this part of the Gettysburg battlefield, including the area where the 20th Maine fought. So you get to see what it looks like today. So they've been fighting for about an hour and a half straight, okay? And I'll show you a map here. The 20th Maine is the leftmost regiment in the entire Union Army at this point. They are the end of this long fishhook line of the Union Army. And so the fear is if the left flank gets turned, the Confederates get around, they can roll up the Union left flank, and chaos ensues. How much of that might have been, I don't know. But that's obviously the fear. And so Chamberlain's told you have to hold no matter what. You are the end of the line. And so Chamberlain holds against multiple assaults up this hill over a period of about 90 minutes. They're holding. They're behind breastworks. They've got a strong position. He's had to send out one of his companies, which he thinks has been annihilated because he hasn't heard from them. He has had to refuse his line by bending it back, so now they're kind of in a V formation, a reverse V, to kind of cover the line because the Confederates are trying to get around his left. And now they're at the place where they're pretty much out of ammunition. They're scrounging from the dead and wounded the best they can. And Chamberlain realizes he can't stay. And if he does stay, he's going to run out of ammunition. So what he has to do is he's got to come up with something. And so he decides to do the only thing he can, which is a bayonet charge down the hill. There are some people who claim that the charge wasn't his idea, that someone else suggested it. It doesn't matter if it was someone else's idea. He was in command. He had the final say. He was the one who made the decision to do this. And so they, along with, I think, the 83rd Pennsylvania, who was next to them, also ended up charging down the hill. And people don't talk a lot about that. End up capturing good chunks of multiple Confederate regiments and basically end the battle on their front with this bayonet charge. So that's what you're going to see. What I love about this scene, not only is that, first of all, this is a scene that you've got to get right because everybody knows about this scene. This has been romanticized to no end. And what's unfortunate about that is that there was an equally important, if not more important, charge that happens about this same time over on Cemetery Ridge by the 1st Minnesota that probably had an even more important impact on the battle against much more difficult odds. A couple hundred men from Minnesota charge into well over 1,000 and take 80% casualties. So by comparison, this one was nothing. But that doesn't take away from this. And Chamberlain receives the Medal of Honor for his performance here this day. So I love this scene because I think they get it right. I think they show it well. They show the heroism of it. The score, the music here is fantastic. So I love everything about this scene. Let's go ahead and watch it.
Half my men are down. Most of the rest are wounded. The left is too thin, sir.
How are we fixed for ammunition?
It's almost gone.
Sir, we're running out. We don't have much left to shoot with. Some of the boys got nothing at all.
Sir, what do we do for ammunition?
Sir, my boys have two Brent muskets and they're firing back with them.
Sir, we ought to pull out.
No, we can't do that.
We can't hold them again, sir. You know that.
Well, if we don't, they go on by and over the hill and the whole flank caves in.
Sir, here they come.
Well, we can't run away. If we stay here, we can't shoot. So let's fix bayonets. We'll have the advantage of moving down the hill. They got to be tired, the Revs. They got to be close to the end if we are. So fix bayonets. Ellis, you take the left wing. I'll take the right. I want a right wheel forward of the whole regiment.
What, you mean charge?
Yes, but here's what we do. We're going to charge swinging down the hill. Just like we pulled back to this left side of the regiment, now we're going to swing it down. We swing like a door. We're going to sweep them down the hill just as they come up.
So I just want to pause right here before we get to the really good part and just say how phenomenal Jeff Daniels' performance is as Chamberlain. I believed it 100%. His performance as Chamberlain, for me, is spot on. This is how I picture Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. And this is a difficult role because Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain was one of the most respected men in the Federal Army, and respected on both sides. John Gordon would, after the war, call Chamberlain the knightliest soldier in the Federal Army. And it was Chamberlain who was given the honor, he was the ceremonial head of the reception of the surrender at Appomattox. He had been grievously wounded at Petersburg, shot through both hips. He was wounded 6 times in 1864, so much so that northern newspapers were reporting his death. They were so sure he had died or was going to die. He survives the war, actually ends up dying of his wounds like 50 years later. He lived into the 20th century and might have been the final casualty of the Civil War, because his old wounds ended up killing him in the end. But this performance is just fantastic, and my favorite part's coming up when he gives the order for bayonets.
Understand? Does everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ellis, you take the left wing, and when I give the command, I want the whole regiment to go forward, swinging down to the right.
All right, sir. Fine.
Move.
Here it is.
Bayonet!
Oh, I love that part. His music is so good here. These are some of the guys they just showed from the mutineers.
Left wing, right wheel.
Right wheel!
Charge.
Charge!
And most of these men are actual reenactors that were used for the filming of the movie. And I believe this really did happen too.
The pistol.
The prisoner, sir.
Wait here.
By God, the boys are still advancing.
Oh, you better go on and stop them.
Yes, sir, but they're on their way to Richmond, sir. Richmond!
Not today. They've done enough for today.
So that's a great scene. It's one of my all-time favorites from any movie, and I hope you enjoyed that one. I definitely recommend you check out the movie Gettysburg. It's not a perfect movie. There are certainly flaws to it, but as far as Civil War movies go, it's right up there. I mean, it's really well done. So I hope you check that out, and let me know your thoughts. Use the comment section below, and we will see you again with another one of these in the near future. Thanks for watching.